Hello, everybody, and welcome to CINEMANIACS, the podcast that tells you what you need to know in the world of film and pop culture. We're your hosts. I'm Alex.
And I'm Keanu, and welcome to the CINEMANIACS Christmas special. We'll kick off by telling you about the films releasing this week.
Then we'll tell you about the Holdovers, rank our favorite Christmas films.
Then I'll take y'all through a childhood favorite of mine, and that is Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
So let's get right into it with the CINEMANIACS Scout. Welcome back, everyone, to CINEMANIACS for the CINEMANIACS Scout. Since we'll be taking a short break over the Christmas period, we're going to go over the releases all the way up until the new year. We've got a few pretty exciting ones. We've got Sonic the Hedgehog, Anora, A Real Pain, The Room Next Door, and Better Man, all releasing on Boxing Day. Better Man is, of course, that Robbie Williams biopic. And then on January 1, we've got two that I'm really looking forward to. Nosferatu, which I'm sure Keanu will have something to say about, and Paddington in Peru. Are you looking forward to Nosferatu, Keanu?
Oh, big time. Nosferatu is one of the few films that I consciously plan to watch on its anniversary. So I watched the original, that's by F.W. Murnau, German film director, I believe, from 1922. And I watched that on its 100th year anniversary because I thought, why not? And really, really good. The imagery, as everyone can expect from a horror film, is just super eerie, spooky for its time. So, great film.
That's really cool. I mean, it's a shame this film didn't come out for the 100-year anniversary. In CINEMANIACS news, this is the first podcast ever where you can tune in on YouTube or I believe on Spotify and see our beautiful faces in the video podcast format. Maybe we'll have some clips going in the future, but this one's going to be pretty bare bones, so low production value. But we're gonna work on improving it. Elsewhere in news in the world of film, Keanu and I watched Wicked when it came out. And they released the title for Wicked Part 2, which I can't believe it is not called Wicked Part 2.
It's called at the end, it was the title closed and it said Wicked Part 2 coming soon, or am I...
No, I thought so too. But maybe it's like a Mandela effect, but the title of Wicked Part 2 will be Wicked for Good, which is, of course, borrowing from the one of the final songs in the stage show. But I'm hoping that maybe they're going to take some creative liberties and make some changes with that film, just because the Act 2 of the musical is a bit weaker than the thing. But that's something I'm really looking forward to. It's almost about a 1 year wait now, Keanu, and then that's some more podcast
I'm looking forward to it
content
because Wicked wasn't a big fan. I haven't been really a big fan of musicals in the past, but Wicked, and I think a lot of people did, find it really, really good.
I'm glad to hear it. You watch any other films this week that you want to tell us about?
What did I watch? Ooh, wow. I decided for the first time in a while to watch American Psycho, the notorious, heavily memed Sigma male Bateman Sigma Bale meme film original, the original piece where all those where all that came from. It is certainly.
And I know you're very proud that you have that one on DVD.
That's probably like one of the reasons I did buy it. I just kept seeing the memes. I'm like, okay, I've got to see it. I have to see the film now. And it is just as funny, if not funnier than the memes. So would recommend to horror comedy fans out there, if they have not seen it, when you get the opportunity, do watch it.
I watched two films this week, very on theme. They were both Christmas films. I watched The Holdovers, which I have the poster for right behind me on the video podcast, everyone. That's the film we're going to be talking about in the next segment. And I also watched It's a Wonderful Life for the first time, which may or may not be featuring in my ranking. You'll have to continue listening to find out. So with that, I think we're going to move on to our next segment, Film Spotlight, The Holdovers. Welcome back to CINEMANIACS, everyone. We're joining you in Film Spotlight, where we'll be talking about The Holdovers, Alexander Payne's Christmas period piece starring Paul Giamatti. I'm going to tell you guys a bit about the synopsis, and then Keanu and I, we've got a bit of a thing planned for you. So, The Holdovers is a Christmas flick, which is a coming-of-age Bildungsroman and a found family drama, all rolled into one. It's set in 1970, being Alexander Payne's very first period piece, and Paul Hunnam, played by Paul Giamatti, is a reclusive teacher at Barton Academy, an elite all-male boarding school. He is manipulated by another teacher to supervise the kids who are boarding at the school over Christmas, who are known as the Holdovers. The film explores a found family trope between Paul, Angus Tully, who's one of the students, portrayed by Dominic Sessa, and the cafeteria manager of the school, Mary Lamb, played by Davine Joy Randolph, who is also a grieving mother of a student killed during the Vietnam War. We are immediately endeared to Giamatti's character when he fails the son of a major donor with perhaps one of the coolest lines in the film. Now, Keanu, you've been very patient with me. We are going to go back to our high school acting days and do a line read. We're going to do a line read of this scene. I will be Angus Tully. You will be Paul Giamatti's character. Are you ready?
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
okay,
so
okay.
We're already on the Google Doc. So,
Right,
sir, I don't understand. Sir, I don't understand. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. Sir, I don't understand.
That's glaringly apparent.
I can't fail this class.
Oh, don't sell yourself so short, Mr. Kuntz. I truly believe that you can.
Gangster. What a cool line. And that's within the first 10 minutes of the film, you've got this like teacher that you just met telling off a bunch of these rich kids. I love it.
I remember just for the first 10 minutes, like you said, of Paul Giamatti, Paul's character, just being so based. We were just
seriously,
like, he's the greatest.
I completely agree. That's honestly probably my favorite part of the film is the arc of Paul Giamatti's character. You know, he starts off like that, like really. A lot of the reviews use the word curmudgeonly. I prefer reclusive or kind of prickly. And then as we move on through the film, he gradually gets closer and bonds with Angus and the chef, and this culminates in maybe my favorite scene of the film, which is those three characters and I believe one more celebrating New Year's Eve. And they set off a firecracker indoors in the kitchen, which is a complete about-face from the uptight Paul Giamatti to becoming kind of a laid-back, almost parent figure. And then you get this great dolly shot where the camera zooms out through the window. You get some snow coming in the background, while absolute pandemonium takes place after the firecracker goes off. You can't hear anything. And then the song Auld Lang Syne, the New Year's ballad, swells in the background. And it really brought a tear to my eye.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, the moment that has stuck with me, even after just one viewing, is the handshake that's shared between Paul and Till at the end. That handshake, dude, just hits so hard.
Absolutely.
It's just so warm and wholesome. I love it so much.
I agree. You might have seen earlier in the week, I put up a clip of that for you on the CINEMANIACS Instagram. So if you're listening to the podcast, you should be able to check that out.
It hit just as hard as the first time.
Just before that, there's this other gimmick. This is a slight spoiler, but not one that's really relevant to the story. One of the things about Paul Giamatti, you might remember, Keanu, is that his teacher has a glass eye. And he won't tell any of the students, Angus included, which eye it is. And then something happens, something traumatic that I won't spoil. And he steps out and looks at Angus, and he points up at his eye. And on the verge of tears, he goes, "It's this one. This is the eye you should look at." And I don't know why that scene just had some level of emotional depth for me, which I thought was really cool. Do you remember when we watched this, Keanu?
This was January this year?
Yeah, that's right. That was one of the problems that I had with the distribution of this film, is that it's ostensibly a Christmas film, right? In America, it released on Christmas Eve, I believe, or a little bit before Christmas. We couldn't watch this in Australia until after January. How silly is that? They're absolutely shooting themselves in the foot. I don't know. Okay. So, do you want to talk about some of the wins from the Holdovers? Some of the good parts of it?
So, for one, the film opens with a reel of retro-style title cards, starting with the old Universal logo, of course, and the old Motion Picture Administration of America, informing the audience of its R classification. Even the studio logos of Focus Features and Miramax have been retooled into retro styling, which I think is pretty cool. And they were designed by graphic designer Nate Carlson, who worked with the director Alexander Payne on his 1999 black comedy, Election.
That's Election. Cool. One of the things that I thought was really cool about that was the international prints of the film, which of course we watched, right? They borrowed the old Universal logo. That logo was real from 1963, right? If you watch a classic film that was distributed by Universal, that's the logo you'll see. However, the other two production studios, Focus Features and Miramax, right? Those logos those companies didn't exist at the time, so they didn't have an old logo to work with. So Nate Carlson had to use their existing logos and make an entirely new logo, which is really cool. And that same graphic designer, funnily enough, also designed the crest of the school from within the film, the Barton Academy. How cool is that? Yeah. The other thing, like, this film obviously takes a lot of inspiration from some other, similar themes. Not so much Christmas films. Like, I don't know if you surely you've seen The Breakfast Club, right?
I have not.
You haven't seen The Breakfast Club. Okay, have you seen Dead Poet Society?
Of course, I've seen Dead Poets Society. Of course,
Good. Okay.
There's two good films. Come on.
Yeah. So like, I always tell people that like when they want to watch The Holdovers, it's really a cross between The Breakfast Club and Dead Poet Society, because you get The Breakfast Club, it's kind of like a one room bonding, like unlikely friends found family trope, and Dead Poet Society is like the high school. Like it's kind of a nice mix between the two. Really, but like it happens at Christmas, they get more of an opportunity to explore the warmer and familial part of it. Apparently, in developing this film, Keanu, the original script suggested that the film would be set in 1958, but this was changed till 1970. And this was to distinguish itself from Dead Poet Society.
Was that the sole intention?
Yep, seriously. It was going to be 1958, and they were worried that it would be too close to plagiarizing Dead Poet Society, which I think is fair. Now, this is all you, Keanu. You want to tell us where this film was shot?
So, this film in production was filmed at 5 actual schools in Massachusetts, with Deerfield Academy providing the front lawn and the exterior shots of the buildings. And director Payne later said that capturing the 1970s aesthetic was relatively easy because changes come slowly to New England.
That's really the point of the film, right? Is that like tradition, for better or worse, really doesn't change. And it's nice to see that that's reflected in the even just the architecture of the film. How about the cinematography?
So for this film, and I'm not used to seeing a lot of films that don't have quite like a cinematographical, that's a new word now, flash to them. So the thing about The Holdovers is it's shot quite neutrally. No elements is very lifted and washed with extreme color, as we see in a lot of horror films and sci-fi, in the sci-fi genre commonly. And it does work well in that it delivers the film's authentic, warm, and cozy feel. And this is supported also with the characters' winter attire. That's of a very earthy color palette, and the set design feels the same as well, with the buildings and the interiors of the buildings being very wooden, and also with warm lighting. So definitely fitting for the story, being a story about togetherness, unity, and being so neutral, being so sort of authentic in a way. It doesn't take away from the narrative and the emotion, which are the two most important things to a story, really. So I do give the film an A for cinematography.
That's rare for you. I got to say, one of my favorite outfits from the film, Paul Giamatti, the teacher, is constantly wearing these really retro suits. My favorite one, he's wearing like a brown corduroy suit, with a red bow tie, which I think personifies the professor perfectly. Now I just want to quickly talk about the critical and budgetary success of the film. So it had a $13 million. All these figures are in US dollars, by the way. So it had a $13 million budget. It grossed $20.4 million in the United States, $25 million in the rest of the world. So that comes to a total of $45.6 million. So not like a blockbuster, but as like kind of a mid-sized film, did reasonably well. Made back its budget almost threefold. Yeah, so definitely successful. It had a 97% score on Rotten Tomatoes, which honestly might be a bit generous because, great film, but I feel like it borrows too heavily from some earlier concepts, and had a 92% audience score, which is about where I would put it. Do you have anything else you want to add to The Holdovers, or are we happy with that?
Just thinking of the figure, 25 million. Like, it doesn't, compared to a lot of blockbuster films that we see over the years, definitely not a significant, huge number, but we do consider that, like we said previously, that the film Australia, where we're based, it was released after the Christmas season, so people weren't too keen to see a Christmas film when it wasn't Christmas. But I think it did make up for it definitely in the craft and the story, which is still centered around Christmas, but can sort of extend out that way, and it was certainly executed well. So it does make up for it in that sense.
And that should be the main part of any film. The art, not the financials. It should be the integrity of its story. And with that, I think we're going to move on to our second segment of the day. That is ranking roundup after the break.
Do it.
Welcome back to Cinemaniacs, folks, and you're back to Ranking Roundup, the segment where we tell you our favourite films on a scale of 1 to 5. Keanu, you want to lead us off with your 5th favourite Christmas film of all time?
Kicking off first and kicking off strong for my number 5 spot, we have an essential Christmas film starring the amazing young talent that he was back in the day, Macaulay Culkin, and another great star in Joe Pesci in the 1990 Christmas film Home Alone.
You know, to this day, it still blows my mind that Joe Pesci's in this film.
It's quite funny to see him sort of try to, with all his might, to restrain himself from cursing explicitly, because at the exact same time that this film was being shot, they were probably shooting Goodfellas as well, as released in the same year, 1990.
Crazy, right?
And it's very funny to see.
No, I remember I was watching a courtroom drama with my dad. I think it's called My Cousin Vinny, where Joe Pesci plays like this almost like pseudo lawyer. And then I remember when I watched this film, I was like, oh, it's him. It's the Robert from Home Alone. He's playing a lawyer. What's happening? Okay, so my 5th favorite Christmas film of all time is Miracle on 34th Street, the old one, like the black and white one. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with this film. I don't think it has that well known in Australia. It's the film where you get some guy who thinks he's Santa, and then later on in the film, right, the Santa goes on trial, and you get this really like witty political commentary, which you wouldn't expect from such a kids targeted Christmas film, where like the judge, who's apparently thinking about a congressional run, right? One of his political advisors goes in and he's like, imagine how telling all the kids out there that that's not Santa would affect your political run. How weird is that? And like the climax of the film, this is a spoiler, but you've had like 80 years to watch the film, so come on. They bring out like 100,000 letters that have all been addressed to the fake Santa, which is proof, because the US Postal Service is a department of the US government, that this man is Santa. And I really enjoyed that. So what was 4th on your list, Keanu?
Number 4, we're coming back to The Holdovers from 2023, directed by Alexander Payne. Thoroughly enjoyed watching it in cinemas. Much more so than anticipated.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I feel like one of the things with Christmas films is that it's so rare that you get a good new one. Most of the Christmas canon is at least 80 years old, so it's nice to be able to watch it in cinemas in its original theatrical release. My 4th favorite, this one is going to be controversial. It's called Love Hard. Have you ever heard of it?
Never.
Okay, so it's a Netflix, very low budget Christmas film, right? And the basic gimmick is that it's one guy who catfishes a girl on a dating app, right? And the girl loves Die Hard, and the guy loves Love Actually. And it's sweet, but the source of this film, my favorite scene, is, have you ever heard like the Christmas song "Baby It's Cold Outside"?
Oh yeah, I've got to go away.
Look at that, you get singing on this podcast too. Yeah, seriously, I really like that song, but the lyrics, they're a bit creepy. They haven't aged well. In this movie, the two main characters retool that song into a more like politically correct modern styling, and again, almost like I think I did shed a tear. It's really sweet. You can listen to that on Spotify, by the way. How about, what's your 3rd favorite pick?
Number 3 is a hybrid kind of in terms of holiday films, in that in its own way links to all of them very, very remotely in some areas, but nevertheless, that is Tim Burton's 1993 animated film Nightmare Before Christmas.
I can't stand it. I'm sorry.
No?
Hard disagree. No,
What?
I look, this is a complete opinion-based thing. I just don't like Tim Burton's he's like that styling, you know? It's not for everyone. Like, I don't know, why do you like it so much?
That is true. I just find I love the art style of it, especially. Like, it's almost a mix between modern and very old animation, like the way the characters move, and also the design of it, and also the story, and the humor is pretty strong, I think. And it's been a while since I've seen it, so
I think that's a fair take. Yeah, I think that's a fair take that the humor is good. Just to me, it seems like completely un-Christmassy. Like, it's a better Halloween watch than a Christmas watch. But you know what? That's fair. If that's your 3rd pick, I have to disagree with you on that one.
And in many ways, it's like an anti-Christmas film, because hate to spoil it, but they do like try to. Well, their intentions, although are good, they end up just like completely almost destroying Christmas.
So it's really like the Grinch on steroids, I guess. So my third pick, Home Alone 1. For me, it's just complete nostalgia. It was probably one of the first Christmas films I watched growing up. Macaulay Culkin is really good in it. And I think it's really nice to watch as a kid because it makes you feel self-sufficient. Truthfully, as a kid, this film actually really creeped me out. Especially the spider. I don't know why that got me. It's funny as watching it as an adult. It's fun to watch these two like incompetent robbers get beat up by a little kid. Yeah, I like it. What about your second pick?
At number 2, I have How the Grinch Stole Christmas from the year 2000.
That's the live action one, right?
Yes. Jim Carrey, of course, immortalized for his role as the Grinch. And as you might have seen on YouTube and around social media, probably around this time over the last few years, as we all have grown up, we've begun to realize just how relatable the Grinch can be sometimes, especially to the introverts out there.
Yeah, I empathize with that on a spiritual level.
There's so many jokes in all the great children's movies that you watch when you're much older, and you just see so much more in the humor of it, and it's just like so much more funny to you. Like it doesn't get old.
See, you know what? That's something we miss in kids' movies these days. Like, there's no humor in it for the adults anymore.
That is true, but I think the last of it that I've seen was Frozen. I think Frozen still had some sort of mature humor in it that the kids probably would have missed, but the humor that the adults probably got. But after that, haven't really
look, if you look at the original Shrek, there's some really biting commentary about Disney in there, and there's some quite rude jokes that are in there for the adults. But if you watch it, I remember I watched Despicable Me 4 in cinemas. Terrible film. There's nothing in it for the adults. There's nothing. It's just the kind of thing. I imagine that they just take an iPad kid as their entire focus group and sit down, watch this film, and if they laugh and clap at it, then they're happy with it. And then they just put it out to the publishers.
We got their money. It's fine.
Exactly, because the parents, the way the studio sees, the parents don't care because they're just going to take their kids there so they can sit there for 2 hours. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Are we up to number 2? I think I've lost my number 2. My second favorite Christmas film is The Holdovers. We've already spoken about that at length, but it was great. I'm gonna watch it. That's gonna be a new tradition of mine. I watch it every year, at least a week before Christmas. Without further ado, what is your first Christmas movie?
At the number 1 spot, it's not the Christmas theme isn't the forefront of it, but certainly is it is quite a big chunk of the movie. And that is Ingmar Bergman's, of course, Swedish filmmaking legend, his last masterpiece, that is Fanny and Alexander from 1982. That is his most acclaimed, probably, and regarded as probably his best work, and his most personal, of course, drawing his childhood experiences into what was his final masterpiece.
You know what? You won't be surprised to hear that I haven't seen that, Keanu.
Of course you haven't.
Of course I haven't.
But you will. I will definitely show you. Not just that one, but definitely a lot of Ingmar Bergman's work, because, just amazing.
Okay.
That's for another episode. But a little bit on the film. Certainly, even after the first viewing of it, it just really moved me. I'm shook just thinking about some of the moments in the film. Yeah, absolutely. Just over anything else, it's about 2 children and their drastic life transition from a luxurious and loving family life of just complete wholesomeness and very together and very prosperous, and you just love that world that they're in, and then that all just completely flips as you get through the film. And also exploring some universal moments of life, such as death and other stuff as well, and then it completely transitions to a life of complete bleakness, and it's just not just story-wise, but visually one of the most gorgeous films I've ever seen. Was shot by cinematography legend Sven Nykvist. My film students out there listening to this, not my film students, but film students out there listening to this.
Maybe your future film students, you never know.
I don't know. Definitely a creative practitioner to look at. Sven Nykvist is his name, who worked with Ingmar Bergman for a lot of his films, and also with another great director, from Europe or the Soviet Union. That is Andrei Tarkovsky. Certainly two great directors to look at, and a really great cinematographer to look at as well, because probably the most evocative and strongest imagery that out there that you can probably see.
I'll have to check that out, I think. My number one pick was Love Actually.
Fantastic.
I absolutely love that film. So, Keanu, you will remember this. The very first time I watched this film was in my year 10 English class. And you were in that class, were you not?
I was there, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And I remember we ran an hour late for our next class because our English teacher, absolute legend, was retiring and was like, he's this British guy. He's like, you know what? You guys are watching this film. And we watched it all the way through. Great. Like, what can I say about it? One of the things that really surprised me watching it after I graduated, when I had kind of a bigger grasp on film, was they name check 9/11 in the prologue. I can't remember that actor's name, but he says that, when the towers fell, it wasn't messages of hate, it was messages of love, which, if you're looking at the time period in which the film came out, I think is a really important message. This is also just a bit of a blonde moment from me. But that scene at the end where the flashcard scene, everyone's seen
I was going to talk about this later.
Yeah. Okay. It's a great scene. Like, it's very British comedy because he loves her, but the husband's in the other room and he can't hear. But this is the thing. This is my problem with it. One, the guy says, tell them it's Carol Singers. Up until very recently, Keanu, I thought Carol Singers was a person. I thought the person's name was Carol Singers. I know! And I'm like, every time I watch this film, I'm like, watching it very carefully. Who is Carol Singers? This must be a character.
Google Carol Singers Love Actually.
Yeah, who is this person? She must be a character. No, it's just me being completely stupid. But more importantly, this is a plot hole. What if the husband was like, oh, cool, I'm going to come and listen to these Carol Singers? What, is this guy that organized his wedding going to be like, start singing? Like, what a load of crap. Like,
yeah,
I think it's sweet, but like slight plot hole. You have any honorable mentions for me, Keanu?
That Love Actually was my honorable mention, and
is that right?
And I was gonna say, like, that flashcard scene, probably one of the first like scenes in a movie that just like made me cry. Like it's just so. It's so
so wholesome and like sweet.
It sends me into a blubbering mess, as you just observed there.
Absolutely, that's so completely valid. I've got a few honorable mentions this week, so I'm going to run through them very quickly. One, Let It Snow. It's an American Netflix knockoff of Love Actually, with like 3 different storylines all intermingled, based on a book by one of the authors is John Green, which I really liked. It's a Wonderful Life, which I watched for the first time this week. Now, the reason it's so ubiquitous in America, I found out, is you may know that I'm a law student, Keanu, so I love stuff like this. Mm-hmm. The film, the lawyers and the producers made a mistake, and it entered the public domain much earlier than it was meant to. So, all the TV networks in America were showing this film at the same time, every year. So that's why it's so iconic in America, because it was free for them to show. Now, they've somehow sorted that out, and now NBC has the rights to it. But that's why everyone's seen it.
Oh.
Because for a long time, it was the only film that was being shown. Because it was for free.
Good accident.
Yeah. Do you remember Violent Night? We watched that in cinemas.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was 2. That was only 1 year ago, no?
I think it was 2. We were the only people in that cinema, you, me, and 2 of our other mates who might be guests on this podcast in future. Hopefully they're listening. It's basically Die Hard, but John McClane is Santa. And it's like some kind of rich family. It's pretty good, not that deep. Worse, this is not an honorable mention, but something that I just need to rant about.
Dishonorable mention.
Dishonorable mention is Silent Night.
Oh,
what a god-awful film. It doesn't have an iota of story. Hardly has any dialogue worth talking about. Apparently, it's the director of John Wick. I think John Woo is his name. How did he fall off so hard? Like, was he just working with a really low budget? And then at the end, you get that weird bauble scene. We cracked up laughing. It's meant to be yeah. You remember that, right? The golden ball.
Now that you mention it, oh my god!
Like that should have been the emotional climax of the scene, and we cracked up laughing in the cinema. John Woo. Like, I don't know what happened, mate, but you got to work on it. Like, come on, it was a cool concept. You could have done better.
What was strange about it was like you get to like 50 minutes in, and you realize like, are they going to speak? And you realize that they just never speak, and it's like it feels like so forced that they're not speaking.
Do you remember the flashbacks? Like back to the happy family?
Oh, there were so many flashbacks.
But they were also like, the whole film's really dark and gritty, like a kind of Matrix color palette almost. But the flashbacks are really warm. I know they were trying to go for something clever, but it just felt really clunky and badly executed for me.
It's very cliche, but not even like calling it cliche is an insult to every film that it's been cliche.
Yeah, cliches are cliches because they're copying something good. This just isn't good though. And then lastly, I just want to have a quick talk about the impact of music in Christmas films. Like, a lot of those Christmas songs are copyrighted, but not Auld Lang Syne. And Auld Lang Syne has really become an emotional climax in so many Christmas films. When Harry Met Sally, I'm sure many of you guys have seen that famous scene at the end of the film. It's in It's a Wonderful Life, who the director of it, Frank Capra, used that in 3 different movies as the emotional climax. Have anything else you want to add, Keanu?
About Auld Lang Syne?
Just in general? Or are you happy to move on to the next segment?
Yes. Don't watch Silent Night.
We'll leave it with that, folks. On to segment 3, which is, we'll be talking about How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Welcome back to Cinemaniacs, folks, and we'll be talking about How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Take it away, Keanu.
So, from Academy Award-winning director Ron Howard, known for the Academy Award-winning film A Beautiful Mind from 2002, which was starring Russell Crowe, won 4 Oscars, including Best Picture in 2002. He delivered a childhood favorite of many 90s and early 2000s kids. And that is, of course, as we mentioned, Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas, of course, starring comedy legend Jim Carrey.
Jim Carrey, what a talent, man.
So the film is based on the great Dr. Seuss's 1957 children's book of the same name, and the plot surrounds the Grinch, who is a recluse, much like Paul from the Holdovers, as we said, who resides outside of the town of Whoville, and he's like, we all know the story, really. He's like just hateful of Christmas, hates it with a passion, hates everything about it. And that is potentially until a little girl in Whoville, Cindy Lou Who, tries to befriend the Grinch and does so in hopes of making him fall in love with Christmas, restore his love in Christmas again, which proves to be, of course, a very chaotic and difficult task.
I mean, like, that is the broad strokes of most Christmas films, right? You get kind of it's like it goes back all the way to Charles Dickens. What's that called? Oh my god, famous bloody hell. I can't remember the name of the book, but the character's Scrooge, right? And it's the kind of guy who's skeptical of Christmas, then by the end of the book, he's redeemed and becomes like, enamored with Christmas. I'm gonna have to figure out what that's called. Sorry. Is it? I don't know. I have to Google that. Continue.
So, looking at it from how it was received, there was a mixed reception about it upon its release. Of course, Jim Carrey was praised for his brilliant portrayal of the Grinch, and the special effects, the visual effects as well, are also a real standout. But surprisingly, and wasn't really aware of this, but it did receive some criticism for its dark humor. Surprisingly,
is that right?
But I don't think that there was anything abrasive or offensive in the film that I can recall, really. So yeah, it was a surprising point of critique.
That really surprises me.
Yeah.
Like, I watched this film as a child, and I wasn't like freaked out by anything in the film.
And there's things you miss when you're younger, but when you get older, you get them. But it's still not like offensive. I
mean, surely this film is classified as PG. It can't be that way. Like either way, yeah. That's really strange.
And it is the Grinch. He's supposed to be this, this bitter and very, very sour, bitter character. So,
you know what? Do you remember that scene that like he's going through? Oh, will this fit in my schedule for the rest of the day? Wallow in self-loathing. Maybe it's something like that. Like,
wallow in self-pity.
Yeah, that's the one. That's maybe I don't know. Maybe it's too like depressed. I don't know. But that's the point, though. That's what creates the arc. Either way.
Looking at it now, box office wise, it did rake in quite a staggering figure, and that is of $345 million US worldwide. And a good chunk of that, almost 2/3 in 260 million, was received domestically. And this was off a hefty budget, reportedly costing $123 million to produce.
You know what? I was surprised by that, but I have a feeling, looking at it in hindsight, that it's mostly because it's largely practical effects. I feel like those sets look real, right?
Those sets are definitely, I think.
Yeah.
for like the more establishing shots, probably not. But I think definitely a lot of the money was probably to create those sets,
Okay.
which are real center of the movie.
Mhm.
And this placed the film 6th upon the highest grossing films of that year, 2000, when it came out.
No way.
Number
A
6.
Christmas film was in the top like 10 of highest grossing films.
Yeah.
That's insane. Oh my goodness.
And that's pretty awesome. That's even more awesome when you consider the hits that came out along with it. So we had Ridley Scott's Gladiator 1, which was a huge success. Castaway as well with Tom Hanks, directed by Robert Zemeckis.
I love Robert Zemeckis. He did was he the Back to the Future? No.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it is.
He
No,
is.
you're right. Back to the Future. You still haven't seen that, but yeah, Robert Zemeckis, love him.
And
Continue.
also Forrest Gump, I believe. And another one, the second installment of the Mission Impossible franchise. So was going up against some pretty huge films at the time, but still managed to do really, really well.
Yeah.
And in another category, it does rank 4th all time in highest grossing Christmas movies. And at number 2 and 3 spots are probably unsurprisingly Home Alone and its sequel.
Okay, yeah.
And interestingly, the number 1 spot was recently took Home Alone, the first movie, off the mountaintop, and that is the 2018 animated film The Grinch.
Okay. So you're telling me the top 4 of highest grossing Christmas films is 50% The Grinch and 50% Home Alone.
Precisely.
That's wild. That's actually wild.
I was surprised. Like I don't even think I watched the new Grinch movie, not new, but the 2018 version.
I've never seen that either. I think it's come up on my Netflix recommended a few times. It's like, it's in the same kind of Disney like, you know what? I think it's the same studio that made Despicable Me. And it's stylized the same way, where, like, with the large heads and the small bodies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe I'll have to give that a watch before Christmas. We've still got a few days. Anything else you want to add about The Grinch, Keanu?
Yes. If you have not seen it, do watch it, because Jim Carrey's portrayal of him is just so good. He's hilarious. In his physical and verbal acting, just so fun to watch. Would recommend.
Incredible. All right, so we're going to move on to the final segment of Cinemaniacs for today. That is the Hall of Fame and the movie quote quiz. See you after the break. Welcome back to Cinemaniacs, folks. So we're going to be talking about the Hall of Fame. Go onto our website and see our picks for this week. My pick this week is, of course, The Holdovers. I feel it's reasonably rare that we get such a successful Christmas film, in today's day and age, when movies of this genre are usually quite old. So it was a nice surprise to watch in cinemas with my good friend Keanu in its original theatrical release. As I said before, it is unfortunate that it only came out after Christmas in the worldwide distribution, but just means I get to watch it again this year, which I already have done. How about you? What's your pick for the Hall of Fame?
For my pick, it's something that I completely forgot to add in my honorable mentions. And the reason I probably didn't rank it among the top 5 is because it's a Christmas film, but not really one for the family.
Okay, where are you going with this?
That is might be a surprising pick, but Eyes Wide Shut, directed by Stanley Kubrick, which was his last ever film that he made.
Wow, okay.
I won't go too far into it, because we'll be looking at the works of Kubrick in the coming weeks.
Sneak peek.
I believe. Hence the little hint here and the little hint behind me, the 2001 Space Odyssey poster.
If you go onto the video podcast, you will see the numerous hints on Keanu's camera for next week.
So that will be an episode whenever we do it. That will be very, very exciting for me.
We'll definitely get to that. Absolutely.
So I won't go any further with it, with Eyes Wide Shut. But that is my pick for the Hall of Fame this week.
I see. Before we go any further, Keanu, we have the most important segment of the podcast. It's time for the Cinemaniacs movie quiz. Each week, I'll be quizzing you on a quote from a film. Your record right now is 0 from 1. So hopefully you can redeem yourself this week. Your quote for this week is...
Oh, God.
Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
Thank God. That's not my answer. Hold up. That is from the 1964 war comedy film directed by Stanley Kubrick.
Well done, Keanu. That
Doctor
is correct.
Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb.
He even knows the full alternate title, folks. And you know what? Like I said, we're going to take a 2-week break because, Christmas and New Year's, we don't think people are going to be listening to podcasts. We want the next episode to get the maximum engagement possible. So if you tune in after New Year's, we're going to be bringing you a Stanley Kubrick special because he is well known to be, I believe, it's your favorite director, right, Keanu?
Jeez.
Okay.
Now,
we'll leave that. We'll leave that for the next podcast.
That's too much to think about right now.
Too much to think about. But tune in 2 weeks. The Stanley Kubrick special. You have anything else you want to add for the end of the podcast, Keanu?
Oh, of course. Being our Christmas special and that we probably won't see y'all in a few weeks, I just want to wish, on behalf of me and Alex, a very Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everyone watching. Do have some time with the fam and your loved ones and your friends and family. I already said family, but friends and family. Do enjoy all that time. It is the most wonderful time of the year.
Absolutely. Merry Christmas, everyone. Make sure you watch some Christmas films, hopefully some from our list. Send us a comment. Comment on our Spotify. Comment on our website. Tell us if you watch some of our Christmas picks. Tag us on Instagram. We'd love to get your engagement. Give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Fill in a poll. There's so much you can do to stay engaged. Send us an email. Do it. Just do it. Comment. Do it. Do it.
And one more sneaky thing as well. Just because I really want to know. If someone out there knows how many shots of Christmas trees there are in Eyes Wide Shut, please let us know, because I cannot figure it out. I tried to Google how many Christmas trees are shown in the film, and Google can't even give me an answer. So it might be something that I have to go back and watch and spend staring at the screen and counting every time there's a gift tray. But if someone knows, please comment.
That's
I'm
your
dying to know now. I'm super curious.
That's your challenge for next week, folks. Merry Christmas, everybody. See you in 2 weeks. Hope you enjoyed the podcast.
Out.